Here's a NASDAQ daily chart. I think we're going to start seeing momentum signals start to flip Monday or Tuesday. And again, momentum is still bullish here, but it's starting to go flatline. The trend is still bullish at this point here for the NASDAQ, but we're forming these negative divergences on indicators all over the place, daily and in the weekly time frame. Now, divergence is starting to play out with the Thursday sell-off there in the 60-minute time frame for NASDAQ. I'll be watching to see if we confirm the topping tail that we got there on Friday. If we get a close and a follow through and start seeing momentum flip, again, momentum still bullish, trend still bullish here, but you've got these divergences that are forming. I believe that momentum, the momentum line, will flip likely on Monday. Tuesday by the latest in all likelihood. If we confirm the lower high with the topping tail on NASDAQ, divergence plays out here, the bar will start turning to red, momentum line will start turning to red, and these sell signals that we're seeing over here that I've been talking about, well, they can produce reversal. Now here we just pull back, and here we just pull back, but now you have a divergence. So again, we'll see if we start getting a bigger sell-off down to this level right here. You start getting a big drop, especially with NVIDIA, the market can follow and you can form this head and shoulders pattern. So again, these signals that have been forming, again, we get the big red bar there. This is still green, reflecting the momentum. But I expect that the bars are going to flip to red early on next week, in all likelihood Monday or Tuesday, and the momentum line will turn down. And I think the NASDAQ has peaked. If we start getting a bigger drop, it could be a major top, a major peak, and these signals are suggesting that we're going to get a drop here. And so we had the sell-off and the rebound back up at the lower high, but the sellers were lurking there. We're probably going to see this begin to play out next week. I'm playing these signals here. Great opportunity the last couple of days here, so I expect this divergence is likely going to play out here next week. I think it's already started with NASDAQ. Like I said, we got the lower high. This gray area on the 60-minute chart of the NASDAQ, again, we've got the topping signals here, buy signals here for the short term. Momentum's got to flip back down. We're going to get a bigger sell-off, but the gray area is telling us, hey, something big's getting ready to happen, and as we've rebounded back up, the background is still red, and we'll be watching to see if we establish a lower high on the NASDAQ or go a little higher and still get it at the 78.6 Fibonacci, which I'm talking about. And support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the chart, you like the indicators, please consider helping out by partnering with me, by supporting the channel. I don't have any sponsors, just a direct relationship with you. I turn all the sponsors down. I get contacted all the time, and I don't want to sell stuff to you, and I don't want to send you to websites that want to sell you stuff. I ask that you help out and do what you can. It takes a lot of time to do this, so if you could take a moment to do that, I would really appreciate it. Just follow the link below. I thank you for your consideration for that. Look, we're getting the sell signals on NASDAQ, and we're seeing them now show up on the S&P. Here we just went sideways. We started to see momentum turned right back up. I think the momentum line is going to turn early on next week at some point. Again, you're kind of going sideways, but we went higher on S&P. We made a lower high on NASDAQ, as we talked about on Thursday, and we are expecting the higher high on S&P and the lower high on NASDAQ to diverge. We got topping tails on both, and I'm going to be looking for a downturn now and for the divergences to begin to play out here with momentum, to flip the momentum with the bars to red, to flip the momentum line, and then to start turning trend signals, bearish, dropping below the cloud, dropping below the line right here, and then the background flip to red here. We have another sell signal this week. We have the little X there saying a possible top. The little orange circle there is saying that this is possibly a reversal bar. It's still green, reflecting momentum, but it was a red bar, and then it was followed by a topping tail. So we'll be watching, does a topping tail get confirmed? And I think we'll flip momentum either Monday or Tuesday in all likelihood. But S&P joining NASDAQ and getting sell signals here this week. This is the S&P 60-minute chart, and again, it came back up and got the higher high like I thought. You'll see the channel in this video if you watch it all the way through. The gray shaded area is telling me something big is about to happen. Okay, we had this move up. It's probably going to move in the other direction. And again, we had some sell signals right here at this peak right here. Turned back up, and bullish signals came back in to form the divergence, and now we're getting more bearish signals. It still may be we flirt with that high, but it is very possible that the whole move is now done, The topping tail on the daily chart, if we start to confirm it, could be that we confirm it with Powell or with earnings or in reaction to the PPI hot inflation data. But topping tail on the 60-minute chart here, and then a confirmation of that. The bar is still green momentum, but it was a red bar during the session there, and it did confirm that candlestick. We'd need a follow through. We'll be watching to see if this high now holds with our divergence between NASDAQ and S&P 500. But 60-minute chart is warning, hey, something's getting ready to happen here. With this gray shaded area, we're going up and then we're going to go back down. That's what's probably going to happen. We attempt a rebound down in the session, or often a rebound, but again, there's a good shot, a turn, a reversal is about to happen. S&P 500 60-minute chart, sell signals at the two peaks there here in the 60-minute time frame as the diversions formed, up into the major upper channel line. I warned you about the 9 counts on NASDAQ and S&P. Got the 9 count, that was the peak, and we began to get the reversal the very next day. We had the nice diversions play out, a lot of indicators, and we may be on our way back here again on the intraday charts for the smaller head and shoulders in the larger one, as I've talked about. The 9 count played out beautifully, and again, it showed price exhaustion. We closed below the upper Bollinger Band, and then we've rebounded. We get a topping tail. We'll see if the topping tail is confirmed, and if we confirm, the wide range bar, one black crow reversal bar. There's so much complacency. I warned you these signals were forming, and we got them in the weekly time frame as well. This is NASDAQ daily chart. Same signals on the S&P. I don't have time to show you, but we got these double sequence count sell signals in the weekly time frame for the NASDAQ. Now you're getting your spinning top. We're probably going to get a red bar next week that'll give us an evening star reversal. And if we do, we can start our way down towards this level. If we get a big sell-off with NVIDIA, the S&P could get it, and NASDAQ here, and you can start forming the head and shoulders if, in fact, momentum signals start turning bearish on Monday, as I think they will Monday by the latest Tuesday, confirming the 9 count by getting a price slip and start a 1 of a 9 to the downside. Weekly time frame by closing below the bar from 4 bars ago. The daily and the weekly charts play out with these 9 counts. So if we sell off by the end of the month, we'll have a 9 count with the topping tail in the monthly time frame. 9 count in the monthly, the weekly, and the daily. Total price exhaustion for the NASDAQ 100. People get so complacent. The market takes its time doing what it's going to do, forming this top with these divergences, seeing evidence of sell signals, and momentum is likely going to flip early on next week, in my opinion. I think momentum's going to shift Monday or Tuesday, probably Monday. And we came down, we hit the 10-period moving average on the NASDAQ here, and we bounced. We got that 2.5% move, 500 points lower. Ended up rebounding back up, but we had a topping tail for a lower high there in the daily time frame, and we got a red bar. So I do think that momentum's shifting. Now, the thing here to be watching is, does the diversions here start spilling over into the weekly chart, and we start getting a pretty dramatic sell-off, and we start seeing the same thing happen with NVIDIA, or do we get red bars here, and this is wave 3, then we get wave 4 coming down here somewhere, and then we go back up and we flirt with this level again for wave 5 and end up forming another little tiny divergence right there. We don't see the awesome oscillator go negative or the MACD go negative. Now, they very well could, but I'm just telling you, it could be either one. Start seeing a big dramatic sell-off with the NASDAQ and with NVIDIA. Really start seeing a wrecking ball to the weekly charts. It may just be we get red and just go on into the negative region there. So we'll be watching how it unfolds. But I do think you have a peak here and possibly a top. NVIDIA has topped, then NASDAQ very well could have topped on July 11th. The Fed meetings are calling the turns. If we sell off into the Fed meeting or so over the next 2.5 weeks and then turn back up, then again, you still have the possibility of a divergence. Or again, you could just sell off dramatically and get a lower high if we don't go into the negative region with the bars. We'll see what happens. Do we go into the negative region immediately or not? So just some things to be paying attention to. But again, I'll be watching for a reversal of conditions next week with the momentum. I'll be looking for this cloud in the 20 period to be taken out probably Monday or Tuesday. I think that will likely happen. On Monday, I think the S&P will probably get a red bar. It did not get a red bar, so I think we'll have selling, and I think we'll see volatility. But we got to get momentum shifting if we're going to see a sell-off, and then again start doing technical damage if we're going to get a bigger sell-off right here, right now. So the red bar showing up, the MACD, I think we'll get a bearish cross on the NASDAQ on likelihood on Monday. So again, we could sell off with Powell. We could sell off again in earnings, or again, later reaction to the hot PPI inflation data. Watching for the red bars on the awesome oscillator and the MACD and the divergences that are forming everywhere on the NASDAQ. We got that topping tail. NASDAQ's going to go lower. You got to take out the 10-week moving average and start seeing red bars. Get a reversal of conditions here in the weekly time frame. Nice looking divergences everywhere on the S&P 500. Here it is with the awesome oscillator in the weekly time frame. And again, nice looking divergences on the MACD. Again, bit of a topping tail there. We'll see what happens with that bar. Still may go up a little bit higher, but we'll be watching to see if we start selling off next week. I think you've got a good shot that momentum's going to shift next week based on the weakness that I'm seeing on NASDAQ, and now starting to see some of the bearish things forming on the S&P 500. S&P weekly here. Now the awesome oscillator is moving slightly higher than the peak over here now. So again, there's still a possibility if we get a red bar, that we end up forming, we get a sell-off, and this is 3, we get 4, get a big sell-off, and then come back up with the Fed. Again, the Fed meetings call the turn. If we start selling off, then we have a top with the last Fed meeting and a continuation with the next. If we sell off and then rebound, then this meeting will likely be a top, confirming a lower high or not. A divergence on the awesome oscillator, but just something, it doesn't have to, but it could. You have the same thing going on with the RSI. It moved higher. So we'll see what happens, but we'll see if we get red bars like with NASDAQ. And again, probably going to see the MACD roll over there Monday or Tuesday in all likelihood. The daily chart here, I'll be watching again to see if we take out the 10 period, the red line, start taking out the lower boundary of the cloud where the 20 period is. You'll get a reversal of conditions with momentum shifting down, and then we'll see how long it can remain down. It starts getting a big drop, remain bearish with momentum. Again, P and NASDAQ can start following Bitcoin lower here right now. You might want to watch the video all the way through. I'm going to be showing you these intraday charts, the Fibonacci retracements, the divergence on the S&P. NASDAQ made a lower high, often diverged. I told you with that big sell-off that we had on Thursday that I thought we'd rebound back up. I thought the S&P would go up higher, hit that upper channel line. I thought NASDAQ would make a lower high. That's exactly what happened. We have this divergence between the two. Again, divergences have marked turning points, short-term tops and bottoms over and over again. So again, I think we're going to either see a corrective move or a reversal if we begin to see daily signals turn bearish and able to turn the weekly signals bearish. If you could turn the weekly signals bearish and get a bigger drop right here and now, and S&P can follow, S&P and NASDAQ can follow Bitcoin lower, which was able to successfully turn the weekly signals bearish. Do that, again, you've got the possible head and shoulders in play. But the divergence here in the lower window, the NASDAQ here, S&P up here, they are diverging with this week's inflation data. So again, it's a huge warning sign. We want to let you know that there is no divergence now between the Dow and NASDAQ. Still is between the Russell and the S&P, but we did get a topping till the Dow went higher here. Earnings, I think it was the JP Morgan earnings put out. It got a topping tail and it moved right into this trend line right here. Again, you've got major long-term resistance up in this area for the Dow, and now a possible triple top here. Watching the topping tail on the Dow, quickly on the S&P. Again, you've got these divergences. Here it is with momentum. You got a little bit of a topping tail there, not as clean as the NASDAQ, but again, this rising wedge I've been talking about, overthrowing the trend line just a little bit there on the S&P and then turning back down and closing pretty much right at it. Again, you've got these nice looking divergences. They've called the tops and the bottoms. This is likely going to produce a reversal. By the way, I've been talking about this divergence on NASDAQ with this rising wedge, and we got this topping tail and this nice looking Doji spinning top legging candlestick. But if we take a channel from back over here, it's kind of interesting. We're slamming right up into a trend line with this rising wedge. Check this out. If I use a linear scaling rather than the log right here, it's more of a channel right into here. But you can see if we go back to the pandemic low right here and to the peak right here in 2021, you got a really nice looking channel. We just slightly through that level, but a really, really nice looking channel. So again, you're probably going to see sellers right in here on the NASDAQ 100. And with their topping tail, you got a pretty good shot that you've peaked. And again, NVIDIA has peaked. The NASDAQ very well could have peaked on July 11th, on Thursday, 2024. Start seeing the weekly signals turn bearish and stop making new highs. A nice looking longer term channel going back to the pandemic low there on NASDAQ. Stowing right at that upper parallel boundary there. And we've got the other divergences I've talked about on the S&P, the RSI, and again, slightly, my trend line moved on me. Hang on. Okay, I locked it in to where it won't move here. But then if I do that, the next session, it moves it, price moves. So it's really here again, we're slamming right up into this trend line. We overthrew it. Again, you possibly have a peak now. You got the divergence on the MACD, on the RSI, and the other ones I just showed you. Momentum and the oscillator, it's all over the place. So we're going to be watching to see if we start a reversal. If these divergences now start playing out, I'll be watching the MACD for a crossover going forward. And again, I think you got a pretty good shot. We're going to sell off. If we get a strong sell off, then break the trend line, then you've got the possibility of a head and shoulders. If we start seeing a very, very strong sell off here into the summer. We're watching to see if the MACD rolls over on the S&P 500. Again, the RSI moved to a new high, so it still might, again, form a divergence here. Got a topping tail there, though, on Friday. NASDAQ got a topping tail with a lower high. We began to see that sell-off right into the trend line that I talked about. 60-minute chart. Here, I'm connecting this point with this point, going back here, and you have a possible rising wedge. The channel takes us back further on the 60-minute chart, which I'll show you in this video. Again, possible head and shoulders pattern here. If we start to sell off, I think that's very, very possible. And if we sell off into July, into the Fed meeting, or on into August, then you can start seeing that begin to play out. So we'll be watching. Do we get confirmation of the topping tail as we go into next week with Powell? I think we could sell off, momentum begin to turn come Monday or Tuesday, probably on Monday. In all likelihood, we've got the lower high on the S&P, or I'm sorry, on NASDAQ and diverging with the S&P. Now, S&P still may flirt with this level a little bit here. We'll be watching, kind of going sideways with these last three bars here. So again, we'll be watching to see if we, again, attempt to rebound, but then end up selling off by Monday or Tuesday, maybe with Powell on Monday or with earnings at some point next week, a lot of earnings. Thing here, you've had the RSI come up here, and either got yourself a Class B divergence where you have almost two equal peaks there, or again, it could come down and then come back up later at the Fed meeting if we only get this as a wave 4. It could be, though, that we have a head and shoulders here, little miniature one on the intraday charts as I talked about. We sell off and we confirm a lower high, and you get these head and shoulders on the S&P and the NASDAQ on the 60-minute charts. I think the MACDs are going to roll over Monday with Powell, and again, maybe it's on his comments regarding PPI or just maybe something else he says. Could still get a PPI sell-off, stronger inflation data, dashing hopes of a rate cut, and then end up doing it after all come September. If I adjust the channel like I have in the 60-minute chart, again from these lows, again, if we come back down towards this level, again, you can get some kind of rebound here and then break this area. You form a little miniature head and shoulders, and again, we have the larger one in play here on both NASDAQ and S&P 500. If we start heading back down towards the 17,000 area, on into July and maybe into August, if we get the big NVIDIA sell-off, that would drag NASDAQ down. Again, a topping tail on NASDAQ like we have on S&P 500. This gave us a lower high after that wide range bar, really a reversal bar, a one black crow pattern, which is that wide range bar, but we're resting on the 10 period. We'll see if we take that out. Will we confirm this little topping tail as a lower high and confirm the wide range bar, one black crow, and confirm it by dropping below those levels come Monday or Tuesday? Some really huge warning signs for the NASDAQ, and I'll show you those signals. But we also got this candle of indecision in the form of a Doji spinning top-looking candlestick. Again, it looks like a Doji, open and close, being very close here on the NASDAQ. Other warning signs, you'll see them if you watch the video all the way through. Hey, my next update, again, posting a video at 7 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. I'm going to be talking about inflation reports. One report, cool. And then with the CPI, and then we got one that was hot. We're going to have a delayed reaction to that, end up selling off, but eventually it's not going to really matter because the recession is going to hit and it's going to take care of the inflation issue. What the Fed needs, a recession to knock out the inflation. In the video I'm going to show you on Sunday, all these warning signs that it's about to happen. A short video, but you might want to take the time to watch it. Let's go through some of the recession indicators. More. I just went through a few, all predicting recession. We're being told that's not going to happen, as they always say, oh no, we're going to have this soft landing of the Fed. Balderdash. The Fed's policies lead to negative outcomes, period, and that is going to be the case. Nevertheless, we got this topping tail. We'll see if we get a big red bar next week, but I wanted to show you, this is NASDAQ weekly chart. Told you, watching this week to see if we get a reversal, either Powell or the inflation, and we did get it. We got it. Sold off on the good inflation news and rallied on the bad, but then we sold off at the end of the session, giving us this candlestick. Distribution is taking place. Look at NVIDIA. Weekly chart did the same thing. We've got that divergence going on. Could be confirming a lower high now. Again, we rallied back up. We formed a rising wedge. Had the rally, the big rally there on Thursday, but gave it back. Had a little bit more of a rally on Friday, but gave it back over 3% on NVIDIA, and most of that rally back there on Friday, and we had a topping tail here, getting a lower high. We had a topping tail here. Again, I pointed out over here, you had a topping tail, and then you got a lower high. You couldn't go make new highs, and then you had the sell-off. Could see that here, but it could be a much, much bigger sell-off. Our NVIDIA has peaked on June 20th. It's diverging with the NASDAQ. It's making a lower high. NASDAQ made a higher high. Likely, again, going to go the path of Bitcoin and drag the NASDAQ and the stock market down with it. Impossible. It's AI. They said about the dot-com stocks. That's what they said about the tech stocks during the tech bubble. Oh, crashed. NASDAQ dropped 82%. Intel and Cisco and Amazon and JDF's Uniphase and all of them crashed. They were the Wall Street darlings there in 2000. Prevent them from crashing. Recession is coming. We're going to get a Fed pivot. That's what I'll be talking about in the next video. So I said it's coming. And the stock market will get the bear market, and that will be associated with the Fed pivot that's coming. And the herd believes the opposite. They believe that it's going to usher us in, to the brand new bull market, and it's going to create a stock market top. And you'll see all of that, the Fed funds rate, and a couple of indicators I haven't shared with you ever. I'll be sharing those with you and showing you evidence that it is about to happen. Back Sunday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Time for that short video. Things you need to know. Thought I'd make that video and share it with you. I was looking for a reversal. Here it is with NVIDIA. We're getting a lower high. Now we need to see if we get a lower low. And if we do, NVIDIA, if we come back and take out that level, you have a lower high, lower low, just like what Bitcoin did. Move back to horizontal support. Let me say this. If NVIDIA has peaked on June 20th, if it has peaked with that reversal bar, we get a lower high, lower low. We start coming down here, taking out this low. We got a rising wedge. It was a bear flag. It evolved into a rising wedge. It broke down on Thursday. We back tested, and sellers pounced on it. Rebounded back up after dropping 5.5%. Thursday, we rebounded back up about 3%. Just over that at the highs, and gave it back. We ended up 1.44%. You got a topping tail here in the daily time frame. NASDAQ did the same thing. So again, if we are just in back test mode of the rising wedge, we'll be watching. Do we start to sell off here in earnings season? Powell speaking on a Monday. Again, we'll be watching to see if he comments on the PPI, hot PPI inflation data. And I told you, the inflation data that could rattle the market. The CPI was cool, but I told you if we started to get hot inflation ticking back up there, hot inflation reports, it could rattle the market going down. If we get a scenario like this where we start setting up a head and shoulders and we start getting a sharp sell-off with NVIDIA, then it's going to drag the NASDAQ down big time. Getting warning signals on the NASDAQ, and again, I'll show you those signals in a moment. Watch the video all the way through so you see these signals. I've been talking about them. They've been forming little by little. Bitcoin is forming bullish signals. Coin's tanked. NVIDIA and the NASDAQ and the stock market are going to follow Bitcoin down while Bitcoin attempts to rebound after dropping 27.5%. Diverging from each other, the stock market, S&P, and Bitcoin, suggesting that we are getting a massive process going on here. We're seeing NVIDIA diverge from NASDAQ. It's making a lower high. NASDAQ made a higher high. It's been NVIDIA that has been leading the charge for the tech stocks and for the NASDAQ. If we sell off right now, if we sell off and take out this low, then you got a shot at a bigger sell-off and coming back and filling some of these gaps and moving back towards the 200 like Bitcoin did. And it moved back to horizontal support in the 200 period moving average, and we can see something like that happen. Beyond it, you know, and it might be up here by the time if we get a big drop, assuming that NVIDIA is going to get lower high, lower low, and start dropping. It could be in a massive topping process. I think the Fed is going to cut September 18th, regardless of the hot inflation report. You got people now saying with that report, no, there's not going to be a cut, and I think there's going to be a cut because recession's coming. That's my next video. You'll see recession is coming. That's what the Fed needs to deal with that inflation. Raise rates another time. They need a recession to knock the inflation problem out cold, get a knockout punch with inflation. This scenario assumes that we're going to get a drop right here now. And again, my signals are warning we're going to get a drop. Start seeing the weekly charts begin to play out. We could see something like this happen. NVIDIA's got a very ugly, nasty negative divergence on it as well. That signals were forming before we ever got this sell-off. We had started seeing reversal signals for the NASDAQ. Now that this is unfolded, we'll likely see the momentum signals turn bearish on Monday or Tuesday by the latest. My guess is it'll turn bearish on Monday. I told you again, I thought we'd get a counter trend back up. We had Bitcoin, or we had the NASDAQ drop 2.5%. It dropped over 500 points in a couple hours, wiping out 4 days of gains in just a few hours. Okay, and then it rebounded back up. And again, I told you that I thought it would come back towards the golden pocket here and the Fibonacci's, and we would likely turn, and it has. And there were sellers lurking there with the lower high. Now, maybe it's done, maybe it's not. Maybe we go up deeper towards the 78.6 Fibonacci. You know, it could be this A, B, kind of a C thing like that, or maybe it's done here. We'll see which way it plays out. But it's what I'll be watching for is if we do have the diversions now complete, if we confirm a lower high here on this 60-minute chart, do we now start coming down, taking out this low, start moving towards the 200 period right under here where it says 60 minutes. So it did what I thought it would do. I think the NASDAQ has possibly peaked. If NVIDIA has peaked, starts getting the lower high, lower low. And again, we have this little miniature head and shoulders where we can come back towards the 200 and towards this horizontal support level right around the 19,500 area. And then we'll see, again, does this head and shoulders set up here? And we've got a much larger one on the daily chart, but this is a little miniature one. We had this rally on very, very light volume surrounding the Independence Day holiday. And then with Powell, told you we could get a sell-off with either with Powell or the inflation data to watch and see which way it came out. And we got a sell-off with the inflation data with NASDAQ. S&P has formed a higher high, which I told you I thought was going to happen in Thursday's video. And NASDAQ has gotten a lower high, but I was looking for a rebound back up, and sellers came in that last hour of trading, and boom, especially in that last half hour, you're watching, is this move done? It could be that we still try to go up again towards the 78.6 Fibonacci, and that could allow the S&P to go a little higher. I think this diversion is likely marked a peak, at least for now, on NASDAQ. Got a pretty good shot that maybe the top is in. NVIDIA's top is in. We'll be watching NVIDIA very closely. We had the MACD form the negative diversions here, tried to turn up. It's struggling now. It's rolling back over. Powell's going to be speaking at noon in the Monday session. So before he speaks, do we attempt a little bit of a recovery here, or taking out the 50? Do we just now start getting a bigger drop? Let's see how it unfolds. But we hit the golden pocket, as I was talking about, and this horizontal dotted red line of resistance and the golden pocket came right up into that area. So we'll see if that's all she wrote. I think NASDAQ's establishing a lower high, and there are sellers here, and there are sellers here. Clearly, NASDAQ is undergoing distribution, and it's likely going a whole lot lower. NASDAQ had a huge rally, but it gave back about 200 points of it. We had dropped 2.5%, then closed about 2.25% on Thursday. We had a rally. We only recovery only closed 0.59% higher. The last part of the session there, we got this that bar, that red bar I showed you on the 60-minute chart. Right, you can see it right here, but I showed you up close. We gave back about 200 points of the rally. Dropped 500. We had recovered well over 300 points of it, but then gave it back at the golden pocket there. So again, you get your diversions here on the 60-minute chart. I think you're going to confirm a lower high, whether it's going to be something that looks like that, and then we go down, or whether that was it there on Friday. We'll see. So again, does this turn back up and we get that, or is that all she wrote? So I'll be watching. What happens when Powell speaks, what happens, the session, and then the latter half of the session after we hear from Fed Chair Powell. And got a really nice looking channel here. Again, I talked about these channels ever since the consolidation here. The signals remain bullish. Again, here we bounced up the support and resistance line right here. And again, I told you, go up to these channels. And I had a couple different channels, and again, I think this one right here on NASDAQ, on S&P and NASDAQ had a couple different channels. I think this is a nice looking channel, and my trend line moved on me slightly here. When I save the program, the trend line moves. It drives me up the wall. So anyways, I think we're setting up a lower high here, and S&P, I told you it was going to go up to the upper channel, and it went up to it and slammed right into it and began to reverse. S&P still ended up 31 points, just up over 0.5%. It was up over 1%, well above 1% there. It back about 40 points of the rally when we hit the high. Now again, I talked about the inverse head and shoulders pattern over here there on Thursday, and I told you I thought that we were going to get a rebound, but I told you S&P is likely going to move to a new high and hit that upper boundary of the channel and diverge with NASDAQ, where I thought NASDAQ would get a lower high, and that's exactly the way it played out. But again, S&P still may test this high, again rebound and get a lower high. We'll be watching, but beautiful inverse head and shoulders, and then we got this big rally back up to new highs. NASDAQ's making a higher high, S&P's making a higher high, NASDAQ's making a lower high, and that's what I told you I thought was going to happen. Diversions on the 5-minute chart, now it's gone negative, so again we'll see. Do we get further selling and start taking out the 200 here, and the 50 starts dropping, moving down below it, or do we attempt a recovery for a lower high, or do we go higher just a little bit and then turn? We'll be watching, but I told you, again, I'm looking for a turn now. I was looking for S&P to go up and go slightly higher, slam into the trend line, complete versions on the RSI in the 60-minute time frame. It did that. We got, in all likelihood, a confirmation of a lower high into the golden pocket on the 60-minute chart of NASDAQ, which is what we talked about on Thursday. We expected that to happen, and it happened exactly that way. Move might be done because we do have this divergence that had formed right here. We had this previous divergence down here on the price oscillator and the MACD. You didn't get it on the RSI. The RSI moved to a new high, but you now have it with this new extreme right here. You now have a divergence right there, and you got one in 60-minute time frame, but it's still possible we go up here and hit this level, go a little higher, or get a lower high before selling off. We'll see. That might be it. That might be all she wrote. We'll see. And again, here we're bouncing off the 50 period on the 15-minute chart, 200 on the daily chart, or the 5-minute chart. Do we get another reference point of a divergence or confirmation of a higher low? If we bounce off the cloud in the 50 here, we'll be watching. And I talked about these channels, and it ended up, this channel from these lows over here ended up playing out. And again, we came up, we slammed right into the channel here. Told you I thought we'd form a divergence. We did. Told you Thursday I thought we'd go up and hit that trend line. Well, we got a rebound on NASDAQ, the golden pocket. That happened. See if we attempt to stay around this area for a little bit before rolling over, or if we just start rolling over and completing the diversions right there, right here, right now. So we'll be watching an immediate sell-off or a rebound at the session, and then what happens when Powell starts speaking. We'll be watching, and we've got earnings. So again, earnings end up helping or hurting the end of next week. It's looking channel though, momentum at extremes form the diversions right here, and I told you I thought we would get another one, and we saw again a new extreme on the RSI. Let me show you that. But momentum here again forming a multiple point divergence. I'll be watching for the rollover, and it'll possibly come Monday. My guess is the latest by Tuesday, but probably Monday. I told you I thought we'd go up and hit that upper channel in order to form another reference point of a divergence right here in the most recent price action right here on the S&P 500 that did play out, and we turned right off that trend line like clockwork, and it's forming this triple divergence on the MACD as well. It hasn't rolled over yet, so again, we'll see if it's buys a little more time, or do we just start rolling over there come Monday morning. But again, turning down off at this level right on the nose, and that's where I told you I thought we were headed. So played out just as we thought it would. These divergences now, these multiple point divergences, and again, I think that's going to give us a sell-off for the S&P and NASDAQ. And if we confirm the weekly bar, the topping tail we got on the NASDAQ, you could get a big, nasty, ugly red bar next week. And so I'll be watching. Do we start moving down to the trend lines here, to the 200 period moving averages? My guess is that's going to be the case, and then we'll see if we try to bounce there or not. But I think we're going to do that. Early on in the week, we still might go a little bit higher on the S&P. If the divergences play out in the time frame, it is very possible you have a top ahead of a Fed pivot. The other possibility is we get a big sell-off, red on the awesome oscillators, but then turn back up and get one more turn. If this is a wave 3 and we get a 4 followed by a 5, or is this just a 5 and we're done? It's really, if we start seeing NVIDIA just crash, head and shoulder patterns in the daily time frame and the weekly time frame that I've been talking about very well could play out. Remember, we got 9 counts in the daily that are now playing out, and we have 9 counts in the weekly time frame, and in the monthly time frame on NASDAQ, we're getting a 9 count sell signal there as well. And I showed you the NASDAQ up close. Here is the S&P up close. Again, look at the divergence. I told you with this extreme right here, we could form a divergence in the most recent price action, and we did that. Still may not be done if we attempt to recover. We got a big sell-off the very last part of the session there, the last hourly bar here. Again, we'll see. Do we go up a little bit higher and go up here and maybe get something like that and then turn? Or do we get a lower high and then turn? Or do we just start seeing the bottom fall out of it here? And we'll see what happens if that's all she wrote. But again, you've got these divergences completing. This is what I told you I was expecting to happen. We went right up to that upper channel line and then turned down off of it. May go up and hit it one more time before going lower. But again, I think you're going to sell off on it in next week. Got beautiful diversions here. We'll see if it's done or not. Do we start rolling over immediately and selling off, or do we go buy a little bit more time and then roll over gradually, either going higher or getting a lower high and then selling off one or the other? But again, I think you're going to come back down, and you got the little miniature head and shoulders as we've been talking about. We'll see if that plays out or not. No guarantee these head and shoulders play out. But if we start selling off, again, we'll be watching the 200 period moving averages, which is coming down here right there at this horizontal support level right there on the S&P 60-minute chart. So things played out. I told you I thought we'd rally to a higher high and get a divergence. Well, NASDAQ got a lower high and a recovery off of Thursday's big sell-off. And NASDAQ got a big sell-off. S&P, got a mild sell-off, not as big. And so I thought S&P would go higher and NASDAQ would make a lower high and they would diverge. That's what happened. My trend line in the 60-minute time frame right on the nose. Question now is, are we going to peak here now or early next week on Monday or Tuesday, and is that going to give us a much bigger sell-off and eventually take us back down to 4,900 beyond this level here? This is just a 60-minute chart, but a bigger sell-off. The weekly chart, if those divergences begin to play out, it is possible we're topping ahead of a Fed pivot. I believe the Fed pivot will be in September. It could either form a top ahead of that or with the Fed. And it could be, if we get a dramatic sell-off, we could start setting up massive head and shoulder patterns. Here's a daily. We start getting a big sell-off into July or August or something, and then you go back up and you get a right shoulder. Again, you could be setting this up going into September, and again, be peaking right here, right now, if we establish a lower high come September. If this summer sell-off scenario plays out, and there's no guarantee that we get a head and shoulders, it's too early to tell, but it is certainly a possibility.